As you were probably able to assume, I am very excited for the DCU because I'm a huge DC fan, and I'm happy to see the DC, universe getting the love that it deserves. But the project I'm most excited for is Batman: Brave and the Bold. We're finally going to get to see the Batman on the big screen, and I, for one, can't wait. So I wanted to tell you things I want to see in this movie, and I have a lot of thoughts. So let's get started. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Geek City. First thing I want to say is no. Don't merge Robert Pattinson's Batman. Let Matt Reeves do his own thing. I want a fantastical Batman. Like, the Pattinson Batman would not be able to fight people like Solomon Grundy. So, no. I want a comic Batman that's the pitch that they gave us, and that's what I want to see. The first thing I want to talk about are some of the things I want to see in the movie, and then after I'll give like a short pitch of the plot. This is going to be one video in a two-part series talking about the DCU. I'm doing another video talking about projects that I'm most excited for and other ones that I want to announce. But that will be a future video. But let's not waste any time. The first thing I want to talk about is the casting. For Batman, cast someone who's not a huge actor. I hear a lot of people saying actors like Jake Gyllenhaal. That's a bad idea. I want someone who is their late 20s, early 30s. Although I want a completely unknown actor. If I personally, I want a completely unknown actor. But if I had to pick a fan cast, I would probably do Brandon Sklenar, or however you pronounce his last name. But that's only if I had to pick a fan cast. Personally, I would go with somebody totally new. I feel like he would do decently, but I'm not going to fan cast every character in this movie. But I definitely wanted to tackle Batman. Also, the suits. I want them to look something like the Dan Mora style, which honestly could be said for every character in this movie because Dan Mora is like the GOAT. I want something that isn't like too out there, but also fits in a comic book world. I wouldn't mind the Rebirth suit. I like that one a lot, especially in the Tom King books. But if you're doing a blue suit, make it in the way Dan Mora draws it. If we're talking about the whole Bat family members, I want to see, I can give you a list. I'll bring up the roles in the movie when I get to the real plot. But obviously Batman, Damian Wayne, and then Tim Drake, Nightwing, Barbara Gordon's Batgirl. No, not Red Hood, but I have a plan for him. So trust me, I will talk about him in a little bit in this video. And I have a lot to talk about him in the other video. The Bat family should probably expand over time, like maybe in the sequels, introducing people like Batwoman and Duke Thomas and whatnot. But for now, keep it like this. And of course, the GOAT Alfred has to be here. And then some other characters that appear in this movie would be like Jim Gordon, Ra's al Ghul, Talia, and like Man-Bat or whatever, which again, we'll talk about in the plot. The main thing I want this film to do is take the first arc of the Grant Morrison run, which is what introduces Damian Wayne, but I also want it like expanded. I want them to take elements from the Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason run because I believe that's one of the best father and son stories in comics, along with their Superman Rebirth one, which is really good, and you should read it if you haven't. So yes, I want a movie that feels like a comic book. I don't want like a dark, realistic bat suit where he's just wearing like realistic gear, like armor. Like, I want him in a comic suit. I want Nightwing in a beautiful blue logo across his chest with lightning sticks. And you know what? Screw it. I'm telling you what I want each Bat member to wear. So first off, Damian would obviously start off with his like League of Assassins ninja suit. But when he becomes Robin, he needs to have that classic suit that he wears when he became Robin in the Grant Morrison run. That one's really good. Eventually, I want him to get the suit in the sequel that he's wearing right now in the comics, which is that gray and red suit, and eventually at some point he could get that. But I feel like for now, let's just stick with the classic Damian Wayne. For Tim Drake, I know his red suit is iconic, but I love the Tim Drake costume from the 2022 run. It's really good, and it's in Fortnite, so there you go. In the Batman sequel, once Damian becomes Robin, I want Tim to become Red Robin, and maybe it could be like a running joke that the other brothers kind of pick on him for him changing his name to Red Robin. Nightwing needs to be ripped straight out of a Dan Mora cover. I don't care how basic of an answer that is. He's the best artist to ever draw Nightwing, and his design is peak. So that's what it's going to look like him. Imagine him recreating that variant cover of him in the rainy alley. That would be awesome. And also, casting Nightwing is going to be pretty difficult. There's already, been people stressing online, but you need to find a man that looks chiseled straight out of a Michelangelo sculpture. And the butt, that doesn't need to be elaborated on any further. For Batgirl, I wanted to wear the suit that she wears in her New 52 run. The reason is because I feel like her suit should be less fancy than the others. because she can't fully commit to being a Bat family member because of her father not knowing her identity. So her suit needs to be more like handmade. And I think the New 52 suit fits well, that purple one. And Alfred, he just needs to look like Alfred. So now's the time where I pitch, I give my pitch or plot of the movie. I'm going to talk about my ideal plot, and most of it's just basically expanding that Grant Morrison comic. And reminder, I'm not a professional writer. This might suck, but I'm just trying to give what I want for the plot. So the opening would probably be like Talia watching clips of Bruce Wayne and Batman all throughout his years as a crime fighter, and you would hear like a young 10-year-old voice. And yes, you should cast someone this young for Damian. But basically, the opening scene is Damian seeing videos of his father, just like in the book, which is how it opens. It also needs to have people being tortured with the Man-Bat serum, which will come to play later. And then the next that's words. The next chunk of the film is Bruce and Alfred getting ready for this like dance or this giant like Gotham ball or whatever. And Bruce would be there flirting with the girls and whatnot. And I wanted to give like a speech kind of similar to what he did at the like the Batman New 52 Scott Snyder run at the beginning, showing that he's like a philanthropist and trying to expand Gotham. But that's when the army of Man-Bats would show up. Batgirl joins in, helps stop it. Batman eventually joins in. But he's led to Talia, and that's when Damian puts a sword to his neck and says the iconic line, "Father, I imagined you taller." And that's when Damian's dropped off at the Batcave. He meets Tim. Tim tries to shake his hand, but Damian does, what Damian does. One important thing I want to make clear is I want Damian to obviously be an annoying brat, but I also want you to like empathize with him. I mean, you got to think about it like this. He's a 10-year-old, basically tortured and raised by assassins. And slowly, I want him to look to Bruce as a dad. But for now, he's going to call him father the whole movie. And then eventually that will change and stuff. The same thing that happens in the book is, where Tim is training with Damian and Damian almost kills him and takes a Robin suit. But I'm going to do something a little different. So in the original book, what happens is Damian beats up Tim. He takes the Robin suit and he goes out. But eventually Batman finds him. But I'm doing things a little differently here. So this time, whenever Damian goes out and fights crime, he's going to find a group of thugs and begins to fight them. But that's when Nightwing's going to show up. He helps him stop the thugs and then ties him up to a chimney and tells Batman that he found him. And that's when Barbara and Dick would help Alfred take care of an injured Tim. Random plot stuff happens, but eventually Bruce finds out where Talia is located. Damian has to go because he knows how we can help her. And this would be the part about like halfway through the film where Damian's taken by Talia. But one thing I want to happen here is when Damian's being taken by Talia away from Bruce, I wanted to say dad help instead of father help. It's a small touch, but I think it would help show the progress that Damian's been going out throughout this first film. Again, I'm not going through the whole plot. I'm just giving you kind of basic stuff. Now, I'm going to be honest. I don't know exactly how I want this movie's second act to go. The only thing I know for sure is I want Ra's al Ghul in it. I want him to be like the main antagonist. I just don't know exactly how the second act would go. Just let me know in the comments. But I know all of you are wondering. All you Jason Todd fans are wondering where Red Hood would show up. And here's what I want. So after the plot's over, everything is resolved. I want there to be an end credit scene. It has Batman fighting Black Mask's thugs. And then suddenly Red Hood appears. He begins killing the thugs. And on the rooftop, it's nighttime and it's pouring rain. Black Mask is trying to run away, but Red Hood gets there and he kills him. Batman catches up and they both turn to each other as the rain pours down their face. That's where I'm going to end it there. Don't worry, I will talk about that in part 2 and how that will eventually go down the line. So I'll explain all that in part 2. I'll explain where I would want to go with that ending. But that's the very basic plot of the movie. I want it to kind of embrace the comics, have fun action, be a great father-son story as well. It's heavily inspired by the Grant Morrison story, but it definitely, also kind of does its own thing, which is important. I don't want it to be a one-for-one copy. That's kind of boring. Now, here's some things I want from DC Batman. This is not specifically to this film. This is just a general thing. I want a comic-accurate Batman. Maybe like a little bit of sarcasm humor like he does in comics and stuff like if you've seen the Justice League War film, that kind of humor, and then he has it in the comics. I want him to be a father to the Robins. I feel like a lot of people now think that Batman is just snatching up kids and using them, but no, he's essentially a father to these guys, and I want that to be shown. Over the next couple of Bat family-related projects, I want to see the 4 Robins feel like brothers, each with different strengths and weaknesses, and I want to see them come together as a family. So that's about it. Again, make sure to let me know in the comments, what are some things you want from DCU Batman? Fan casts, plot details, other things of that sort. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to stay tuned for part 2. I have one other video coming out before, and that'll be a ranking of like my favorite comic book movies. But once that one is out, I will begin working on part 2 of this series, and who knows, maybe this will become more than part 2, more than 2 parts. You know, if I have so much I need to say. So, anyways, please consider liking, subscribing, and as always, stay geeky.